My name is Julie, and I have been diagnosed with a disorder called dissociative identity disorder, or D.I.D. Previously, this disorder was more well known as multiple personality disorder, whilst historically it's been known to be called demon possession, hysteria, and double personality disorder. All these previous names are actually misleading in what the disorder really is. So D.I.D. is a split of someone's personality within childhood, whilst the personality is still fragmented, so not fully formed yet. For this splitting to occur, a child must have experienced long-term childhood trauma, such as war, human trafficking, repeated medical and surgical procedures, or childhood abuse. D.I.D. is often confused with schizophrenia. So while schizophrenia is a split from reality, D.I.D. is best described as a dissociative state of mind, where the mind cannot cope with what is happening in reality. Therefore, it disconnects itself from the world around them. Surprisingly, most people experience a type of mild dissociation within their everyday lives. So, for example, daydreaming in class or getting lost in a really good book. Schizophrenia, however, is a psychotic disorder in which the person experiences reality in a completely different way to other people. For instance, believing that they're being controlled by the government or a greater being, or that other people can hear their thoughts. So D.I.D. is just one of many dissociative disorders that exist. So it's characterised by the presence of two or more alters who can take control of the body and have their own behaviours, memories and thought processes, and amnesia of several aspects of the self that cannot be explained through simple forgetting, such as everyday events, personal information or traumatic events. D.I.D. can be experienced differently by different people due to the variety of the symptoms and causes. So for myself, I experience each symptom to different extents on a daily basis. I often find myself dividing my days into good and bad days, depending on the severity of each of my symptoms. So these days are characterised by how much my alters and day-to-day amnesia affect my ability to be productive, feel confident, and ability to face the day. So good days, for me, tend to involve little involvement of my alters taking over. I am able to be productive throughout parts of the day, and I can function with little to minimum evidence that I have any difficulties typically. These good days are unfortunately rather rare. Bad days mean that I have huge difficulty in knowing who I am, knowing the world around me is real, and that I am safe. On bad days, I struggle to do simple tasks such as basic hygiene, getting dressed, even leaving the house to go into my own garden. Fortunately, bad days are not the most common. The most common daily experience for me is something that ranges between these two types of days. For example, I may not know who I am when I wake up and I struggle to get dressed. But after a few hours, I found a sense of self and I've made a simple plan for what I might be able to do that day. I may lose sense of time, for instance, discover that several hours have passed when I thought it was just a few minutes. I may be able to get a few simple housework tasks done, such as washing the dishes, vacuuming. I'll often dissociate, though, to another alter, who will take control of the body as they see fit for as long as they desire. Most often, though, it involves some sort of going back to bed and sleeping. I have around 26 alters, 2 boys and 24 girls. This is not unusual, but it's also not typical. There is no typical or normal amount of alters that someone might have. It can range from 2 to in the hundreds. It's also not unusual to experience alters who are a different gender to their body's gender. So some people can experience alters who do not label themselves as human. For instance, fairy, demon, or what is in the community commonly referred to as fictional. Someone who is from a book, for instance. Alters can also present themselves as different ages. For instance, one of my girls, Beth, is 4 years old, whereas another one of my girls, Julia, is in her 30s. put this in perspective, the physical body at the time of this video is 29 years old. So Beth, she's very cheerful 4-year-old. She loves animals and the colour green. She's very outgoing and often demands the attention of anyone who is around. Julia, however, she's very strict. She holds herself with quite a high regard, both mentally and physically. She sits up quite straight with her head held high, and she's the one who often organises us to appointments and will hold us accountable if anything does not go to plan. So typically for myself, if we switch to another altar, I, Julie, do not remember what happens when that altar is out. So for instance, if Beth comes out, I will have no memory of what Beth did, said or experienced. Occasionally we can remember, but this is only if we experience something called co-consciousness, whereby 2 or more alters are present at the same time. But for me, co-consciousness can be very draining and exhausting. So although it is possible for me, often it's not preferable. D.I.D is a covert disorder, and many people will never know someone experiences it unless the person shares the information. It's such a covert disorder that many people who experience the disorder may not even know they experience it until a lot later in life. I personally was very fortunate that I was diagnosed in my late teens, early 20s, which meant that I could start therapeutic work at an earlier age. So I've spent over 10 years battling with myself on a daily basis about who I am, etc., etc. And due to this, I am now in a place whereby I am able to live a semi-functioning life with friends, family, a home life, and now also a part-time work life. I've never been able to hold down a full-time job, and I may never be able to do so. However, this does not mean that everyone with this disorder cannot work full-time, as many people do and can. It's just for me personally, there are several things that I cannot do and may never be able to do so. I hope that hearing this has been helpful, and if you find yourself wanting to do further research, please do. I highly encourage it, as every single person who experiences D.I.D experiences it differently, even though there are similarities. Thanks for listening.